But yeah, our first question is from Lil Smooth from Snapchat, and he wants to know if Giannis wins another ring in Milwaukee, is he better than Kawhi?
So, when he says better than Kawhi, are we talking better legacy? Because I don't think a ring can validate. There are a couple of times where a ring can validate you as a better player, right? Like if you've shown the ability to perform at that level, and another guy didn't, then yeah, you could probably say he's a better player. Like, if we're talking Steph Curry and Chris Paul, and we're comparing both of those guys, we could say Steph Curry is a better player for a bunch of reasons. But one reason is we've seen Curry perform at a high level, at the highest level in the NBA. And we haven't seen Chris Paul do that. So, better player is going to come down to that skill set, in my opinion, most of the time. And to me, Kawhi is just a better, if we're comparing one guy to the other, I think Kawhi is a better player. From a career standpoint, if Giannis wins 2 rings, then I think you have to give it to him.
I think when you say like who's the better player, you kind of casting too wide of a net. When you mean obviously, like Ty said, Kawhi is obviously the better player, but I would agree that if Giannis gets another ring, he'll have the better overall career, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because, like, you can really – the question, you can look through it 2 ways. Like, do you mean player for player, or do you mean if Giannis wins another couple rings or so-and-so? Because player to player, even if he did win 2 rings, I still, like, talent-wise, like, I think Kawhi is, like, superior to him talent-wise. He obviously can shoot better. He can play defense probably better, especially, a couple years ago. So yeah, you can definitely interpret the question multiple ways. But I would say if he wins a couple more rings in Milwaukee all time, he'd definitely be ranked higher because it is what it is. Because let's look at the team he was on compared to the teams Kawhi. Even though Kawhi kind of had the same type of team in Toronto, like they're very similar. Actually, I think.
Very true.
You can go either way with it because it'd be like Kawhi winning a couple rings with Toronto with that same type of team that Giannis had. So that's why he would Giannis probably be up there all time over Kawhi, but player for player right now, I would still say talent-wise, Kawhi's better.
Yeah, you got to separate those two.
Yeah, it's a 2-part like question.
Yeah. That's a good point because even when we're talking all-time players, right? Like if we're gonna say who's a better all-time player, you could say a million guys, right? What doesn't make T-Mac a top 5 talent to ever play this game? You look at skill for skill. And people are going to hate that I say this, but you look at a skill for skill, there wasn't much Mike was doing that T-Mac couldn't do. Mike's thing was athleticism, but if you're talking about scoring bag, Blake's not liking this. If we're talking about scoring bag and all of that stuff, he kind of had the same stuff. Same with if we're comparing him to Kobe. That scoring bag was very, very similar.
Yeah.
But it's the legacy thing. I think most people, when we talk about Mike, it's going to come down to his legacy in the 6 rings. It was almost a perfect career when you look at Michael Jordan. Outside of like the 2 retirements and all of that, it was a perfect career. But I mean, and people, maybe the T-Mac take wasn't the best, but if we're talking just skill and ability, there are going to be a bunch of guys, and just in that top 5 is going to look super different. Like Kareem may not be in your top 5, but we're talking just skill and the ability to just go out there and hoop. So it is important to kind of make that distinction.
Yeah, because you can definitely put, like you said, Tracy McGrady. You can definitely put Penny Hardaway up there.
Yeah,
easily. Like, bro, his talent was undeniable. It's just he was unfortunate to have injuries, and then the time he did make to the finals, it just didn't turn out. So a lot of this stuff is dealing with legacy, and that's tough because some of these players are just as good as all-time greats. They just championships, as people forget, is like a lot of opportunity too.
Yeah,
like you're not always going to be on the best team. You're going to be sometimes you're going to be on the 8 seed team, but you're going to be one of the best players in the league. But your team just happened to be not as good as the 1 seed. You know what I'm saying? But yeah,
true.
Very good point. And I mean that's all. I mean that's what I can think about with that. And I think also too. I mean Kawhi has got 2 rings too. Like I think the stain on Kawhi Leonard's career, and I kind of did a post on this where I was like, how much more does Kawhi Leonard have left to prove? He's shown that he can lead, and this is kind of a little bit off topic, but he's shown the ability to lead a team to a championship. He did it with Toronto. If you didn't think his MVP in San Antonio meant anything, you have to give credit to his MVP in Toronto. Whether you look at it and say, okay, well, the Warriors are hurt, he still showed the ability to be the best player on a team and dominate the playoffs. He was the best player in the playoffs that entire season or that entire postseason. So I mean, my question for you guys, my honest question here is, since we're on the subject of Kawhi Leonard, what else does Kawhi Leonard have left to prove at this point in his career? And he's got, let's kind of go down what he's done. 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 2 finals, 2-time champ, 2-time finals MVP, multiple-time All-Star. Only stain is that he's hurt. But what else does he have to prove from a legacy standpoint? Because it's a lot of different stuff that guys will have to prove here and there. What do you guys think Kawhi's got to, show people?
I say I say I'd like to see him win the MVP, regular season MVP, but the way his injury wise, I don't think that'll ever happen. When it comes to injuries and him, I can't really put that against him because it's something. I think that injury, like with his knees, I don't think it's something he can really control. So I won't put that against him. But if you put that aside, legacy wise, he's up there with some of the people we put in the top 10. I mean, if you take out MVPs and you look at his finals runs, that 28 was 2019. That was something.
Yeah,
something a lot of people don't really talk about.
Yeah, he made me become a Kawhi fan because I didn't like the Warriors. For anybody that didn't know, man, I was rooting for that dude, bro. I was like, man, look at Kawhi, man. I never even really liked him for real like that. Yeah. I liked his game, but I never I hated the Warriors, so you know.
Yeah,
but his game reminds me of Tim Duncan a little bit, quiet but very effective.
Yeah. Also, on top of that, too, I don't think we've seen a player, and you guys can kind of chime in on this, but have we seen a guy progress offensively like Kawhi? Because he kind of came in, remember, he was really raw, and then, becomes now one of the more polished scorers in the league, so I don't think we've seen a guy. I mean, let's try to name some other guys, maybe Giannis in that conversation, but he still has some ways to go. Like, who else would you put in that conversation as far as guys who just totally developed their game from kind of being a project offensively, to being this ultra dominant level scorer like Kawhi is right now? It's tough.
Great question.
Yeah.
Giannis and Kawhi the top two, like main.
I think those are top two.
Because I can't really think about anybody else. They might have got better a little bit, but not like drastically like Giannis. Because remember, Giannis and Kawhi, when they came in, they were really known as defensive players. Like Giannis was known for like blocking shots and running the floor good. He was never noticed for having an offensive repertoire like down low, but he developed one. And Kawhi, he learned how to shoot from the outside better, post moves. So
I'm really trying to think because I can't really.
Is it really anybody?
I can't think of anybody else, but I will say this. Those two guys, in my opinion, are like the prototype for a lot of GMs when it comes to drafting, right? What's the one word we hear all the time when GMs are about to draft a guy? He's a project or he's developing. We see it with Scotty Barnes. We saw.
I was just about to say that, bro. Yeah, I was like, do you see kind of the comparisons like him coming out with Kawhi?
Yeah.
Do you see that? Like they're really a defensive-minded player that's basically saying they need to work on their offense a little bit more, and he might become a player like that. You never know. But I'm glad you mentioned him.
I don't think it's gonna take. It's not gonna take him long to get the hang of it offensively because he's already showing flashes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's stuff like that kind of makes me happy about the league is that people are kind of willing to trust the work ethic of these guys. People will take a dude that they think isn't totally developed and trust that he's going to develop at some point. We've seen it work. We've seen it not work. We saw it not work with Thon Maker, but again, we saw it work with, you're looking at Patrick Williams, right? Bulls fans all over the world are really excited to see what he's going to do after kind of, giving him stuff when he got drafted, 4th overall or 5th overall by Chicago last season. So people are taking, John Isaac is another guy. People are taking swings on guys they're looking at as projects and who haven't totally developed their offensive game. I think it's really healthy for the league, and I kind of think Giannis and Kawhi are like the two, prototypes for, what a project is and all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one, because I would say, but I don't know, because I didn't know. Like, I watched Chris Duarte's highlights. He's another one that like can progress on the offensive end.
Yeah.
Because like you would see his highlights and you would just kind of see him have some layups and dunks, but his outside shot is really better than what I thought. So he could be one of those other type of project dudes, but it seems like he's getting it real fast. That he can just develop an offensive game like hella fast.
Really fast.
He's older, so he's had that extra time to really polish those skills.
And you are really thinking any other draft people that like been drafted this year that's kind of on par with them too, as far as like comparing them to how Giannis and Kawhi kind of made their game better on the offensive end?
That's a good question. I'd say Kuminga because he shows a lot of stuff. He shows a lot of stuff, and you're kind of waiting. It's kind of a Jaylen Brown thing where you're kind of waiting on to progress a little bit more offensively, but he's showing you a lot of great flashes.
You forgot about him. That was another one.
Who else would you say? I'm gonna just chime in and throw one more name in there. Probably Can you see Keon Johnson? I mean, Keon Johnson. Yeah.
Keon Johnson.
Yeah. Keon Johnson. Definitely. But yeah, we're seeing it year in and year out with these guys. Isaiah Stewart, just got drafted last year to the Pistons. We're kind of seeing, him kind of be at that point where they're still working on developing him. So we're seeing it all the time. And like I mentioned, these two guys, Kawhi and Giannis, are prototypes for that. But yeah, man. But I'm really excited to see, what comes out of these guys. But yeah, these guys are extremely, Kawhi and Giannis are extremely influential, to how I think teams are drafting these days for sure.